delighted to introduce our next speaker, who is from PTC Therapeutics, Amy Lee Bredlau, who is a Senior Medical Director. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the committee for inviting me to speak today, and I'm delighted to speak on behalf of PTC Therapeutics. Well, I'll give you an update on PTC 518, but first, a moment about PTC. We are passionate about our purpose. Our mission is to bring best-in-class treatments to patients affected by rare disorders. We're more than a biotech company, we're a cause. We're scientists and innovators who are looking for new ways to treat rare diseases. It's more than finding new treatments, though. We're committed to making a difference for the global rare disease community. To that end, PTC 518 is a new Huntington-lowering drug in clinical trials for Huntington's disease. It's orally available. It's a pill that can be taken by mouth. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and we hope that this might provide treatment of Huntington's disease everywhere in the body, the brain, muscle, immune system, and the rest of the body, and that it will allow for Huntington lowering in the whole brain. PTC 518 is a splicing modifier that lowers Huntington in the blood and brain of BOC-HD mice. So let's first talk about splicing modifiers. The way that proteins are made is first DNA is transcribed into RNA, which is then translated into protein. The splicing modifier interrupts the production of the RNA that would have made protein into the exons that code the protein. A pseudoexon is inserted, and this tells the machinery to stop making the mRNA. The mRNA, because it is short and stopped early, is degraded, so the proteins are never created. And that's the concept of the splicing modifier and exactly how PTC 518 works. So when we give this agent to mice, with BOC-HD mice with Huntington protein, we see that we are able to lower the HTT protein in their blood and in their brain. The yellow here is showing lowering, in this case in the mouse model, around 50%. PTC 518 meets our criteria for robust and equitable HT lowering in vivo. It exhibits the qualities that we're interested in taking forward, which includes that it's orally available. It's a pill that can be taken by mouth. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it does get into the brain and distributes throughout the brain and body. When it gets into the brain, it stays there. It's not pumped out of the brain, which we call effluxed. It's not effluxed, so it can stay where we want it. And then it does lower both mRNA and protein through the mechanism I've described. Also, it has a reversible yet durable effect because this pill that is taken just once a day. So we took this into the clinic and we performed a phase 1 study in healthy volunteers. This study, we started with single doses for participants, and they took one pill, and then we had blood draws to see exactly what was happening. It was tolerated, so we went into a multiple dosing cohort where participants received one daily dose for up to 21 days. We also looked to see if food taken with the pill or in the similar timing of the pill would affect absorption of the medication. And we had a small cohort where we were able to sample CSF to confirm that PTC 518 is actually getting into the brain in people as it did in the animal models. So in this study, we saw that PTC 518 was well tolerated in healthy volunteers. The most common adverse events were headache and nausea. There were no PTC 518 related serious adverse events. Most adverse events were mild. They did not lead to the participants stopping the PTC 518 administration, and they all resolved without issue. So this told us that PTC 518 was well tolerated in this phase 1 healthy volunteer population. Our objectives were met in that PTC 518 is delivered through the body and into the brain. We did see mRNA and protein lowering, and we were able to select a dose for our phase 2 study. Our phase 2 study, we call it Pivot HD. This study is looking at how safe and well-tolerated PTC 518 is in patients, as well as how effective it is for helping patients with Huntington's disease. We'll be looking at the mRNA and protein lowering in patients with HD, as well as looking at the effect of PTC 518 in the blood, brain, and MRI of brains for patients with Huntington's disease. This study is a 12-month randomized placebo-designed trial. When patients receive study drug, 2 patients receive PTC 518 for every 1 patient who receives placebo. After 12 weeks of study, we'll have a brief initial data readout, but the study does go for a full 12 months. Right now, we're enrolling 5 milligram and 10 milligram doses. When we have sufficient data, we'll meet with our Data Safety Monitoring Board to determine if a 3rd dose is appropriate. We'll enroll up to 162 patients. The trial started earlier this year, and we do plan a long-term trial to follow. There will be no placebo in this study, and it should last for a couple more years for participants who want to continue taking PTC 518. So this study is specifically recruiting participants with no functional decline. They must be at least 25 years of age. They must have CAG repeats from 42 to 50. They must have no functional decline, so a TFC of 13, which is a perfect score, and the UHDRS independence scale must also be perfect at 100. And then we're using enrichment through the PEN-HD score, so that must be 0.18 to 4.93. The TFC and UHDRS scores are helping us to select a population who has no functional decline, and the PEN-HD score is helping us to enrich our population. Now, what we're doing with all of these numbers is we're using actually the new HDISS staging. We are looking specifically at stage 2 patients, and this is new for the community. Most studies have been in stage 3 for very good historical reasons. We think, though, that if PTC 518 is effective, it will do a very good job of helping people to retain their function. So if a patient is on PTC 518 and they're fully functional, we hope that PTC 518 will keep these patients fully functional while they take the study drug. So this study will measure the safety and tolerability of PTC 518 in patients with Huntington's disease. It will measure the lowering of HTT protein both in the blood and in the CSF. It will measure the neurofilament light, NFL, in both plasma and CSF. And we will follow brain imaging with the MRI. Our clinical endpoints include the UHDRS, the PBAS, some wearable assessments, which are done only in clinic, not at home, and the FIRST 2.0. So in summary, the PIVOT HD trial is up and running. PTC 518 is a new splicing modifier that is taken by mouth. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and lowers Huntington in the brain and body. The study opened earlier this year, and if you're looking for a site near you, clinicaltrials.gov is updated regularly. So PTC would like to thank you and all the patients and families that have gotten us this far. I'm happy to take any questions.
Perfect timing again. Time for one question, and then I hope we'll have much more questions in the panel discussion. Over there, the lady in red, if you could introduce yourself as well, that would be great.
Hi, thank you. Willeke van Roon, LUMC. It's pink. But
oh, sorry.
Fine. That's okay.
It's lovely.
I have a question about the specificity of your compound. You have a back-HD mice. You showed the results. And of course, the rest of the transcriptome is mouse transcriptome. So did you look in a human system with a human transcriptome and checked how specific your compound is?
So that's a great question. So the biology and non-clinical team at PTC has actually spent years in designing PTC 518 for high specificity.
Okay, so you didn't see any transcripts that were affected with this splice modulator?
So I don't know of any, but I can check with my biologist and make sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. So,